Hello everyone, GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs and our favorite and only recurring segment, Moment of Zeneca. Zeneca, welcome back from vacation. Thanks so much for joining us here. We're going to get into, of course, the merge, the big news, share our excitement, give a couple thoughts. The Doodles announced they raised $54 million or thereabouts, like a $700-something million valuation. I have big thoughts there. I want to talk about Akutars. People know I love Akutars, but haven't really given an update there in a little while. Disney making some big moves that I really want to make sure we talk about. Starbucks NFTs. I mean, we could go on indefinitely here. So before we get into all of that, I have two requests, of course, as always. First, if you like this show, please subscribe. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, subscribe there, leave a rating and a review. It really, really helps the show. We are so grateful, as always, that you're listening. And we, of course, need to hear a word from our lovely sponsors.
There is a brand new staking feature in the Ledger Live app today. We all like staking the assets that we're bullish on, and now you can stake 7 different coins inside the Ledger Live app. Cosmos, Polkadot, Tron, Algorand, Tezos, Solana, and of course Ethereum. With Ledger Live, you can take money from your bank account, buy your most bullish crypto asset, and stake that asset to its network, all inside the Ledger Live app. Through a partnership with Figment, Ledger also lets you choose which validator you want to stake your assets with. And Ledger is running its own validating nodes, offering a convenient way to participate in network validation, and it even comes with slashing insurance. Ledger Live is truly becoming the battle station for the bankless world, so go download Ledger Live. If you have a Ledger already, you probably already have it, and get started securely staking your crypto assets. COINSHIFT is a leading treasury management and infrastructure platform for DAOs and crypto businesses who need to manage their treasury operations. Every crypto org needs to manage their treasury, and COINSHIFT offers a simple, flexible, and efficient multi-chain treasury management platform built on top of the extremely secure Gnosis Safe. With COINSHIFT, your organization can go from primitive single-chain treasuries to expressive, flexible, multi-chain features such as global user management, global contracts, proposal management, and many other features that can be shared across an entire organization. COINSHIFT layers on powerful treasury management tools on top of the proven security of Gnosis Safe, allowing users to save time and reduce operational burdens and gas costs. COINSHIFT even has data tools like account reporting across the 7 chains on which it operates. Used by industry powerhouses such as Uniswap Grants, Balancer, Consensus, and Messari, COINSHIFT is speeding up the coordination and efficiency of the organizations that use it. In DeFi, you have to keep up with the frontier, and COINSHIFT makes that easy. So sign up at coinshift.xyz/bankless.
Okay, let's start where we always do. Macro picture. Zeneca, what are you tracking? How are you feeling about the state of the NFT market and the market generally?
Yeah, I feel so like the merge literally happened 8 hours ago or something. So it's all very fresh. Macro is like global macro is very bad. Still, nothing has really changed there. ETH prices tanked a bit.
Well, inflation came in higher than expected.
Yeah,
which
higher.
That was like the change that kind of precipitated the first round of crashing prices.
Stocks are tanking, and then and it was sort of like everything was tanking, but like ETH was holding up relatively better compared to everything else. But then I think the merge happened. It went well. Everyone was expecting it to go well, and price it was like classic buy the rumor, sell the news. And as of now, it's down to like 1,500. Who knows where it's going to go? I don't pretend to have any sort of insider predictions there. As for the NFT market, it kind of seems like there's signs of life again, just literally today that we hadn't seen for a while. Renga is really pumping a lot. Anamura is pumping a bunch. There were a bunch of CryptoPunk sales. There's just been a little more life. Like if you go back over, look at the last 2 weeks, it's been just completely dead. Like things are bleeding and it's been miserable out there. Today, maybe there's signs of life, and it's probably hopium that things are going to pick up and be bullish. But I'm feeling particularly optimistic today, and but it's still not a great market by any stretch of the imagination. Like there's still all of the same problems that we had a week ago, a month ago, 6 months ago, like oversupply and not enough new entrants, not enough new money. Macro is bad, all that kind of stuff. But a few projects are pumping today, which is just nice to see.
Yeah, and I think longer term projects, initiatives, some that we'll talk about today that are on the horizon that I think will bring those new users, bring that increased energy. Now, what that will do to existing PFP style projects, none of us know, of course, but signs of life in any number of ways this week. I feel like just cool news coming out of the space generally. The merge, yes, you mentioned it. Prices have dipped quite a bit. I mean, you can literally track the chart. It's like 4 a.m., like basically an hour or so, 4 a.m. Eastern time, right? Like right after kind of the merge, it goes through, it's completed, it all looks good. Just practically a straight line down from that moment forward, which really just says people were expecting it to happen and to succeed. And I think there was questions around that, right? It was like, will the price pump after the merge? And that would have been a sign that people were still skeptical about it in some capacity, or maybe didn't think it was going to happen. And then a successful merge would have caused the price to pump. But the reality was, everyone who was paying enough attention to be owning Ethereum on the basis of this news clearly was pretty optimistic about it. And so there's a dip, completely unfazed by it at all. Of course, I don't think it really means anything. And you and I have already described on this podcast just what the supply demand economics look like, and how much more beneficial they, I guess, officially now are. Now that the merge has gone through, and I've been beating the drum just on the environmental side of this.
Yes.
How incredibly exciting it is that, we are no longer sort of the circus freak of the carbon world.
And, I saw a really great chart just like half an hour ago, and it was just sort of, if anyone talks to you about the environmental impact of NFTs on ETH, send them this graph, and it's like, it shows YouTube, it shows gold, it shows Bitcoin, it shows Ethereum proof of stake, and then you go all the way down, and it's like Ethereum proof of work, and then right all the way down Ethereum proof of stake, it's like 0.01% compared to like everything else. It's just, that narrative is going to circulate, and I think eventually, maybe even soon, but mainstream will catch on. More brands and institutions that had previously been looking at Tezos or Polygon or Solana might now be more open to ETH. And artists, like, there's so many artists that the singular reason they did not want to create NFTs was the environmental impact. Now, obviously, there's other reasons like the artificial scarcity and just the whole monetary system of it all. But for a lot of people, that was a hindering block. And I think, it's going to change.
And I will say that the artists are who really permeated the media narrative. Like, I went back and looked at a lot of the like anti-NFT on the basis of environmentalism coverage, and that coverage very much centered on artists. And all these news stories use the same sources over and over again. So there were like a couple of artists in particular who were like, I was so excited about NFTs, but I'm this huge environmentalist. And the second I realized that like all of my other efforts to protect the environment had gone to shit, like my attempts to eliminate my carbon footprint were all for naught, because this single NFT that I sold did all of this damage, which it also is a misunderstanding. But that was really the basis of a lot of press coverage around it. So totally, I think the artist thing is huge, because they get press outlets covering what they're doing and what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Are you? I'm assuming the answer is no, but let's see. Are you planning on trying to grab any opportunities on the proof of work ETH chain?
No. Yeah, I was just sitting on my hands. I think someone said like, the futures for ETH proof of work are trading at like less than 1% of ETH proof of stake. So it's like, you could try and bridge and fork and claim like $15 for your $1,500 ETH and something like that. And the risks of replay attacks and all sorts of other stuff. I am nowhere near smart enough or confident enough to battle it out with the bots and just sit in your hands is my approach.
I agree. And, I think there's no future for the proof of work chain, and so, or fork or whatever it ends up being. So I'm just staying away from it all. So speaking of brands coming in and being mindful of the environmental narrative, Starbucks NFTs, this was big news this week. People posting about it everywhere. They're launching on Polygon, which they cited being because it was proof of stake. I was reading a lot of the coverage of it over the last couple of days and being like, the irony of you like touting choosing Polygon because it's proof of stake when, Ethereum we're hours away at this point. Give us your take. What are your thoughts on Starbucks NFTs?
Yeah, I think it's overall a really big win and a net positive to see a brand as like they have like 100 million people enter their doors every single day. They have more locations around the world than almost anything else. I think more than McDonald's, or maybe that used to be the case, but not anymore. There's that meme where you're in San Francisco or Seattle and there's Starbucks on every single block corner, and they're everywhere. And they have a loyalty rewards program that has, I think, 25 million members, if I'm remembering correctly. And they're basically transitioning that to incorporating NFTs or digital collectibles or digital. They tried reasonably hard not to use the word NFTs, but then in like the official publication, they do say it. but they will be getting people into the ecosystem of owning digital assets. And I think that is the most significant thing. And, you talk about how it's on Polygon and not ETH, but I think it's probably for gas costs more than anything rather than the environmental impact. And I think that it's obviously going to be somewhat of a closed garden, and it's not going to be this truly open, metaverse or like open marketplace where people are buying and selling, I think, but maybe I'll be proven wrong there. And a lot of like the rewards are going to be very specific. So it's like you can earn these NFTs and then maybe upgrade them and then claim rewards like a discounted coffee grinder or access to I think they have like online workshops, and then maybe you can go visit one of their coffee plantations and stuff like that, which is really cool. Like those are great benefits, and it is a good use case. And I think it's a great way to onboard a lot of people, Trojan horse them in basically. So net positive in my mind.
A huge net positive to my mind. One thing is when I think loyalty programs, I think airlines, and I think like coffee shops. Like the only card in my wallet, the stamp cards, you collect 10 and you get a free one, that I use with any sort of consistency is my coffee shop. I go to a local coffee shop in FiDi suited, and it's because I buy it every damn morning, and I buy tea, right? But I get my iced tea there every morning. And so I maintain that card and I maintain those stamps. So those kinds of loyalty card programs, and coffee has always been the thing in my mind that's such a no-brainer if we get there, because it's an everyday habitual thing for folks who use it in a way that very few other purchases are. And I think what was so striking about this is it's a loyalty program on steroids, right? They're late stage capitalism in many ways is like squeezing the last drops of juice out of existing customers, or getting a few more people to pay attention to your brand than to that other brand. And that's where NFTs really come into play. I mean, we talk about it when it comes to creators and how creators can now better monetize their super fans, but it applies to brands too. And that's, I think, what we're seeing here with Starbucks is how can we just get more eyeballs and more time spent interacting with the Starbucks brand, and NFTs as ultimately the most convenient, sensible way to do that. One thing that struck me is they're talking about, to your point, all of these really cool benefits like, okay, you can play these interactive games, or you can take on challenges to show your knowledge of Starbucks, and then you'll earn these, they call them journey stamps. And then these journey stamps might unlock really amazing benefits like going and touring one of their coffee plants in Costa Rica. They could have offered those experiences previously to their customers. There's nothing actually requiring them to use NFT technology to say, hey, if you're such a super fan that you collected all of these stamps in our system because you engage with our brand so much, we're going to send you to Costa Rica. They could have done that previously. But there's this almost psychological unlock that I feel like is happening because of NFTs with creators, with brands, where they're actually thinking about doing this kind of thing now in a way they just previously weren't. And this technology is certainly ultimately going to be a much better way to unlock those experiences than the tech that they had previously, but they could have done it previously. So there also feels like there's this just psychological shift in the way brands are thinking about marketing and consumers and audience engagement that doesn't require the tech, but is being facilitated by the tech.
Yeah, it makes it just a little cleaner. And you're totally right. It's this mindset shift where people are now, brands, companies, thinking about how they can add value and enhance the user experience, customer experience, consumer experience, whatever you want to call it. And they could have done it without NFTs, but NFTs, I mean, it does solve real world issues. It eliminates almost entirely fraud. And if someone loses, someone could like potentially sell their, if someone gets all these rewards and they're like, I don't care about going to Costa Rica, they could potentially sell that. And this depends on how open and closed their marketplace actually is, but most traditional reward systems would probably not allow you to sell your rewards and pass it on to someone else that have terms and conditions being like you have to use it. But if we go where I hope we go, and these do become open marketplaces, then you will have an open market for all sorts of stuff like that. And someone who could be a customer who spends a lot of time and money at Starbucks, but they want to sell all their rewards because they don't care about that kind of stuff. And then there's someone else who maybe they don't spend that much time going to Starbucks, but like there's a particular reward that's really cool. Maybe like I think they mentioned they collab with artists as well, so they could have really excellent artists come in and create pieces that someone external to the ecosystem might want to collect, and then it's just like all this cross pollination and hopefully win-win-win situations.
Yeah. The other reason this is a big deal is we talk about the social signaling potential for NFTs, or the value prop there, that one of the reasons this stuff is inevitable is because people want to socially signal and they want to tell stories about themselves, and NFTs are a way to tell stories about yourself. And I've always given the example of like and I've used coffee shops actually as this example of like when your receipts everywhere are NFTs, and the coffee shop you go to every morning gives you an NFT as your receipt, and your Gigi Hadid or insert megastar here, and your fans can go look at your wallet and be like, oh my gosh, Gigi drinks XYZ coffee every day because we see these receipts. Like, that's a powerful thing. But for that to occur, and you could extrapolate that out to any different kinds of markets, music, concert tickets, etc., that requires a preponderance of people to have wallets and to have NFT wallets that are mainstream enough that people know where to go and look and see what's in your wallet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, it's about onboarding more users, roundabout way of saying what we all already know. And Starbucks has a massive freaking audience of people who are probably not currently native to NFTs, who are going to participate in this. And Starbucks was very adamant, like without even knowing that they're actually getting into an NFT or getting into the blockchain ecosystem. So I think that's really exciting, getting new people into the space, because we need those network effects for the social signaling piece to be fully realized. The question mark is, if all of these badges and these Starbucks journey stamps, et cetera, live within this sort of walled ecosystem, ultimately we need to have it so that there are wallets like an Instagram, or a place where people know to go to see all of the NFTs that people hold, right? So like people aren't going to go to other people's Starbucks account pages, like there's going to have to be more of a
like
widely accepted platform, where you can go and see all of the NFTs that people hold. But that's in Starbucks' best interest to integrate with something like that, because they want people showing off that they have Starbucks journey stamps. Like that only feeds their ecosystem. So anyway, very, very exciting stuff. Was there, you posted something funny, I think, about the Starbucks, which was like a screenshot of the Google, if you like Google searched.
I Googled Starbucks NFT, and the top result was the Starbucks announcement. And the one directly under that in my Google response was from Gizmodo saying like, Starbucks unrolls its dumbass NFT project. And then you click through and they're like cutting it to shreds. And they make some valid points, but it was very
what were the valid
biased.
points?
I think it's kind of like they're just using it as a way to extract more value from their ecosystem and like try and almost brainwash people.
That's what capitalism is.
Exactly. Yeah. You brainwash people. In order to get these rewards, you have to answer quizzes about Starbucks. It's like, what year was Starbucks founded? And all of a sudden now people are doing this research, and now you're just creating this mini cult-like environment. But I mean, that's obviously a pessimistic view. Yeah. I think there's a much, much larger reasonable middle ground where you can have fun experiences that are net positive, win-win-win, and reward people meaningfully for their efforts and loyalty, really.
Totally. And do you know how many people in this world would love to be able to get a Starbucks coffee because they answered questions rather than by paying? Like, it's, I don't know. It's just so silly. People,
it was very biased, but it was just funny. The
and
results.
Like, fine. Yeah. Some of that's valid, but people just have a pathological distaste for change. And anyway. Okay, the Doodles news. Doodles raised $54 million at a $700 million valuation. The round was led by 776, which is Alexis Ohanian's venture fund, and a couple other venture funds here. We had 10T Holdings, Accrue Capital, and FTX Ventures.
Not A16Z. You made that funny tweet about
that was the first thing that jumped out at me. I was like, oh, wait, where's mom and dad? Like, what do you mean?
Like, how is this possible?
When was the last time we saw a fundraise announcement that didn't include A16Z? What do you make of that?
It's not surprising. I think they even announced a while back that they were exploring this and probably going to be raising capital. It is just another in a string of many, many of these S-tier PFP projects that have raised VC capital. Obviously, the largest, most notable was Bored Apes. It was like 500 million at like a 4.5 billion, or 450 million to 4.5 billion valuation. Proof raised 50 million recently. Cool Cats raised. Everyone's raising basically, and there's just a bit of the narrative is shifting now, where like it used to happen, people are like, yay, great, that's so much money and it's great for holders. And I think it was because it was a bull market and it was a great news meme event where prices went up. But now people are digging in a bit deeper and being like, hang on, why is it good for holders? Where is the value accrual coming from? If these VCs are investing into the company, not into the NFTs, they're buying the actual company equity, they are going to want a profit. And how are they going to realize that profit? It's by the ecosystem generating revenue. And one of those ways to generate revenue is by selling NFTs and secondary market sales, which effectively makes the NFT holder the customer rather than like a first-class citizen in the ecosystem, like many people thought. And there was also, there has been a long-standing misconstrued and misaligned understanding where a lot of people think that they're like literally buying equity in a company, which is very clearly not the case. But and I think more and more people are realizing that. But certainly some people had some sort of impression that, hey, I have an NFT, I'm entitled to financial upside directly from the company doing well, and all of that is just getting messy, and the narrative is emerging now, and I think people are becoming a little more anti VC.
Yeah, I think Doodles precipitated this because the announcement was preceded by a month and a half or 2 months or whatever it was of complete silence. And so there was this already building resentment within the community around not feeling heard, not feeling responded to, not feeling engaged with. And then you have this VC announcement and it's like, where do we stand with all this? I'm going to be honest, I think people are being kind of babies. Like, let me summarize what's going on. I listened to the whole Doodles call. Doodles is trying to build Disney. They want to be a $200 billion freaking global conglomerate business that lasts 100 years. Your NFT, in their mind, will be worth something for the same reason that original Disney collectibles are worth a ton of money, because you have the earliest incarnations of what they plan to make a very, very incredibly valuable IP. But it's a collectible on crack in the sense that along the way, by holding this collectible, you are going to have benefits throughout this whole experience. Jordan Castro gave a number of examples of like, hey, if we launch a game, it may only be token holders who are able to launch a guild, and then anybody can come on and play the game, but only the guilds will be run by original holders. Or if we launch a music video as part of like the music program that we're launching, we'll cast original Doodle characters in the music video and pay you a licensing fee for the fact that we're using your Doodle. So fundamentally, the run-up of the value of your token will be as a entertainment collectible thing, like a Mickey Mouse collectible or a R2D2 collectible. But you are going to have these other benefits that come along the ride for this journey. So no, they don't really give an F if you're mad that they didn't retweet your fan art. And I get why that's a painful transition for people to go through, because they're going from what felt like this like community, it's about us and this, we're in this group and we're doing Twitter, whatever. But like, okay, it's changed and they're trying to become Disney. It's not that confusing. I feel like people want to make it confusing because they're struggling with change.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. It's also, I think, just like you said, the optics of not announcing anything for 54 days. Plus, we're just in the depths of a bear market and people are just craving just direct revenue and money in their pockets at this point in time. And it's just like the market has just significantly changed. We are not where we were 6 months ago, certainly not where we were a year ago. And I think that it's going to take a while for people to adjust. I agree. Like, I don't think VCs are bad or evil by any stretch of the imagination. They allow companies to scale very quickly to places they might not have been able to in time spans that they certainly would not have been able to. And it's not just about the money, a lot of people think, but there's a lot of connections and
Yes.
Things that can help, like, media announcements and relationships that can be built and connected. It is still a little antithetical to what a lot of people maybe thought of when it came to Web3 and these NFT communities, where a lot of people were hoping for it to be the community together building something without big bad VCs and Web2 corporations coming in and taking a big chunk of the pie. But again, it's this misunderstanding of, and maybe I can't remember how Doodles announced it to begin with, and various projects have had different narratives around what they're selling when they sell their NFTs. But it's certainly people did not necessarily expect to have a collectible in the next Disney. They maybe wanted something a little more, like they had the Doodle Bank where they were paying grants for people to do things and the community was building the brand up. And now all of a sudden it's like it shifted to something incredible. Obviously, it's like they have a lot of money and a lot of connections and really a lot of talent and a very well recognized brand. So they have a ton of opportunity for success. But it's that change that I think people are uncomfortable with.
It totally is. And I don't want to sound entirely insensitive, but to continue to sound entirely insensitive, you can't have it both ways. Like,
No.
you're saying people didn't necessarily think they were buying, a piece of the next Disney. They thought, and that's where the sentence ends, because people didn't know. Like, none of us knew. There was like this kind of, in the vagueness, and we've talked about this a lot, they reward specificity and they punish specificity and they reward abstractness. So when they bought Doodles, they were like, we love this team. Maybe there's some magic something that can happen where it can just stay us 10,000 holders or, whatever it is. And the price can just keep pumping. Like, that's not realistic.
No.
So if you're going to think long-term in terms of building a massive brand that will ultimately mean your Doodle has a lot of value, you need to onboard a hell of a lot more people, which means not just caring what the original 10,000 people think, but thinking bigger about how do we get another million people on board. And there's an inherent tension with, like, in my opinion, listening to like the early adopters who they're already sold by the vision, and figuring out how to sell the vision to another million people so that your price can continue, maybe not linearly, but in the long term going up. And I think folks just have to accept that. Again, not trying to be insensitive. I mean, the Doodle Bank thing to me it felt like one of the sillier moments on this Twitter space that the Doodles team did, where people are upset because there's not a lot of energy, I guess, around the Doodle Bank in terms of proposals getting passed. They're not getting quorum of enough people like actually passing it. And they're like looking to the team like, well, we look forward to hearing your strategies for how you're going to incentivize people to use the Doodle Bank. And it's like, there's 2,600 ETH in there. Like, that's your damn incentive. Like, that this is supposed to be a community fund. And there have been projects that were passed recently. There was some Triwizard tournament like concept that just got allocated 60 ETH. Like, for people with strong ideas who really mobilize the community, there are things being passed by the Doodle Bank, and the expectation that the team should be spending a lot of time. I just think it's totally backwards. It's short-term thinking. Yes, it might drive short-term value to your NFT in the sense that the same X number of thousands of people who buy these PFPs can trade them around a bunch and pump them up and whatever, but it's not actually going to grow the pie if they're focused on that right now. And I just think people are a little bit missing that in a way that
100%.
I would like to call out.
It all comes back to, I think, something I wrote about in my newsletter, Impossible Expectations, about how it is literally impossible for a NFT project, a company, especially in this space, to please everyone or even please the majority of people, because you have people that minted day one, you have people that bought at 5 ETH, you have people that bought at 30 ETH, you have all these different people who paid different entry prices, and that's just one element of it. They all have different expectations. Some people are happy to be just owning a collectible in the next Disney. Some people want it to be all about the Doodle Bank. Other people want it to be they think they were buying part of the company, and it's just like it's all over the place. That's what you get when you have this open sale to thousands of people. And I don't think any project has quite figured out how to reconcile that piece, just because of the nature of like NFTs selling on OpenSea. Anyone can go and buy at any price. The market will do what it's want, and then all of a sudden you have no control over who your holders are, and then they get angry and they come in Discord, and it's just like it's not really on the team, but like there is communication that the team can do to improve that situation, but it's just a systemic issue with the entire space, I think, with Impossible Expectations.
Totally. I talk about they come into the Discord and like yell and get mad. I thought about that because I understand this tension between, hey, we raised money from VCs, so now we're quite legally beholden to these VCs in a way that we're not legally beholden to our token holders. And so this question of like, I guess like, why didn't you raise from us? But it feels like there's this element of like, why did you take money from VCs? Instead of us, they screamed angrily on their laptops in Twitter and in Discord and with profanity. And it's like, because they don't like, who wants to be, legally bound to 10,000 people that scream at you sometimes irrationally on Twitter over 8 board members that you can get on the phone with and frankly have a rational conversation with. Like, I tweeted something that was like, I do think there's going to be pain in the future. I think more and more projects are going to start having this fundamental problem, which is they're trying to professionalize, they're trying to become really legitimate businesses. And there is a total tension between benefiting the VCs or your equity holders and benefiting your token holders who are not legally equity holders. And that's an unfortunate position to be in. And it arises simply because if these companies were to give equity to the token holders, it would become an illegal security, and that wasn't an option. I don't think I think there are projects that would actually choose to raise from just their token holders if they could, and if they could fund it at the scale they needed to, and if they could do it legally, but they can't. And so they turn to the VCs for that reason. But I think the other side of this coin is what I just articulated, which is I think some would still choose to take VC money anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
To your point, because they have the connections and because you were talking about people who typically have had experience building massive businesses as opposed to 5,000 anonymous folks online who may not have as much experience, building a business or valuable insight, et cetera, et cetera.
I spoke with a bunch of, this was a while back, but like a bunch of founders that had come into the NFT and Web3 space from traditional Web2 startup culture and backgrounds where they would raise VC funding. And by and large, the consensus was always, I thought having to answer to VCs was bad until you have thousands of people who paid $75 for an NFT in Discord, demanding action on a daily basis. It's like VCs, I mean, I've heard a lot of people saying that they don't love the demands that VCs might place on them. Every VC is different, but it's still, I guess, a little more professional and a little more structured and a little more understanding and less chaotic that you get with thousands of stakeholders.
It is easier to talk to 5 people than it is to talk to 5,000. That's just the reality. We all know that feeling. Like, it's just trying to be honest when there's situations with nuance in a Twitter space of 5,000 people, some small, tiny minority of whom probably on like virtually a partisan ideological level have reasons that they want the project to fail and they want to twist and spin whatever you're going to say is just a much more miserable experience and a harder experience than being honest in a room of 5 people who you've kind of hand selected and trust have your best interest in mind. Like, they're not comparable experiences. And I think Doodles, and again, I don't own Doodles, I'm very bullish on them because I think the team is smart. I think the way they're approaching this is smart. The way they're not capitulating to their holders. I know holders hate to hear it, but I think it's smart. And the way they went about picking their VCs, I mean, the fact that A16Z isn't in there to me says something. It says that they were very intentional about who they wanted on board. And I think A16Z already has a set of ideas around how projects should run. I think, are very involved with Yuga, which is a different direction than Doodles is trying to go. I just heard from various folks. I think they were very intentional of like, we want to have a lot of autonomy. And so VCs who are going to let us have a lot of autonomy and let us do what we want to do is who we're going to go with, because we do have our pick of the litter in terms of which VCs we bring on board. So even that to me speaks to their just leadership and vision, which is what I've felt from Doodles for a very long time. Like you said, folks in the beginning maybe didn't buy on thinking they were buying into the next Disney, for example. And that's fair. And again, I get that, but I don't think they necessarily had a vision of exactly what they were buying into either. They wanted that vision to come from the top, but then the second you have a specific vision, people are there are going to be people who feel angry about that, which fine. But Doodles has pretty consistently to me been driving in this direction. Like from pretty early on, when Jordan came on the podcast, I don't even know when that was, last year, like you could tell this was the direction they were driving and they're being really intentional about it. So I'm very team corporate Doodle over kind of team holders who are aggrieved that they didn't tweet for a month. And again, look, I get it. And I frankly, think they maybe should have just thrown a GM out there into the ether because who
Yeah.
cares, and make people, know that you're still around. But I think Doodles is building smart, and this is a long-term game, and they're setting boundaries so that they can achieve that long-term gain.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
How does Bored Apes get away with it? Just because they're good at like tweeting? Like, why has Bored Apes got like managed to like toe the line where everybody's like seems thrilled with them and comfortable with the VC funding, and
I'm not
also
so sure
to think that they're still,
that they are anymore. I think that narrative
haven't.
is changing quite a lot. Where
Yeah.
like even myself as an ape holder, I'm less thrilled with the direction. Ever since I saw the leaked deck from when they were raising, and it had things like, yeah, we're going to drop 100,000. Other side, our expected profit is 1 to 2 ETH each. Profit margin is 99%, and this is, and it was just like, it was very, oh, okay, so this is straight profit that we as a company are going to extract from the community, and then like the cost to build the game is this much less, and it's just like, okay, so these are all the ways we can raise capital. And I think we were still in like a mania bullish cycle when that came out. Other side was coming out, people got airdrops, and but then that drop happened, and it was kind of the Pico top of the entire NFT market this year, and it's sort of basically been down ever since then. Yes, I mean, I am getting less bullish on Yuga. Obviously, they have a lot going for them. They have like just a tremendous amount, but just, I don't know, philosophically, it is a little irksome the way that all unraveled, and their communication after the fact was just odd. Like, oh, it's Ethereum's fault that our smart contracts were very gas guzzlers, and
Yeah, that was
just, yeah.
that was the lack of ownership there was just bad. The lack of accountability. Well, and what you're getting at, and again, because I can actually take both sides of this, is there was a tweet by Punk4156 that I actually retweeted with some commentary that was like, founders are absolutely engaging in a bait and switch around here,
Yes.
selling you on the meme of protocol ownership, then leveraging the hype to keep it for themselves at high valuations while claiming the NFT was always the product.
Mhm.
So basically, like, they're selling you on this idea that you're like partly an owner, and then
Yeah.
they're now sort of getting these high valuations and being like, no, the NFT was always just like a collectible or always just a
Yeah.
product. You're not really an owner. And I'm totally sympathetic to that. I think the devil's in the details, right? Which is certainly that was people's impression. Certainly there was this, there's been this narrative that it's this new world of ownership, which could be interpreted to mean like you own a piece of Yuga or you own a piece of Doodles. But I think you'd have to really go back and go look specifically at specific companies and specifically at what their comms have been historically to figure out how much were the companies really pushing that narrative, and how much was that the kind of broader narrative that was getting attached to companies and they weren't really correcting it. Do you see what I'm saying there? Like some projects I think certainly were pushing that. I think some projects just rode that wave and rode that set of assumptions, but didn't necessarily foster it themselves. It's dicey, right? It's always been dicey.
Yeah, it's been all over the place. And, you know, we've literally seen the whole spectrum where I remember it was, I think around this time last year, September, October, we went through this whole phase of DAOs and ERC20 tokens, and people like would literally talk about passive income on the OpenSea description, and it was just like crazy. And everyone's like, yeah, I'm just buying a piece of this and I'm going to do this. They would do these calculations and be like, I'm going to earn $400,000 a year by having 10. And it's just like that was one extreme. And then you have the other extreme where it's just, I guess, pure art. And then all these 10K collections largely fall somewhere in a gray area, especially the more respectable ones have obviously done things legally and not stated that people are that they're selling unregulated illegal securities. But the community, like you said, in many instances would have run with that, and maybe they didn't course correct and weigh into those conversations as much as they should have. It's really hard to tell.
I think the really complicated thing here is going to come when certain companies do incredibly well and the token holders don't. So, for example, Doodles to me has a really good shot at achieving this Disney-like dream as far as all the players in the space go, right? That's an incredibly hard vision, and Disney is a company that is 200 years old, right? So, but in terms of the Doodles potential relative to, call it, 99% of what's in the space to become a really mainstream entertainment brand that whose like original holders, like the original IP has collectible value, I think is pretty high relative to others. I think there also will be projects in this space and companies that take their original IP or their, whatever, and do very well and have a lot of success. And it doesn't translate into the original token being a coveted collectible item that's worth more. And that's going to be really uncomfortable. The reason I feel like I'm almost harsher on the Doodle community is I think like they have they have actually a really good shot of this happening in the long term, and of their original token and of that collectible really going up in value as the company itself gains in prominence. But there's other projects where I don't think that's going to happen, where I think there will be companies that will do very well and the original token won't. And that's going to be painful and a hard pill to swallow. And I think there are going to be disappointed people when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also a matter of time frame as well. Like building, like you said, Disney is a 200-year-old company. It is, if Doodles wants to be the next Disney, it's going to take years, I think, for there to be pure collectible value on these early NFTs. I think for the next 5-10 years, price might go up, but it'll largely be speculative value on people still speculating that there's going to be, it's all like people speculating that, well, there'll be even greater collectible value in the future. It's like, kind of like the greater fool's theory, but then like if the brand does turn up, then there are people who genuinely do care to collect it. But I would wager that 95% of people holding all NFTs are just hoping to sell it at a higher price at a future date, which is the bubble, basically.
There is a floor value, and we don't know what it is, but there's a floor amount of value to Doodles because there is a certain level of utility, or they're like getting into their events. They're going to do these music collaborations with Pharrell, and your Doodle might be able to be cast in a music video, or they will inject enough opportunities for the original holders that that there will be a floor of like, this is worth something based on this utility. What that is unclear, but everything above that point is that speculation until they really cement themselves as an IP that has collectible value to people. And that's a really hard thing to do. And, so remains to be seen, but I think they have as good a shot as any that we see right now in actually pulling that off. Last thing on the Doodles front, they did announce they have 19 new roles that they are opening up. And I gave this word of warning, I guess, to folks on the show that I do with Robbie Ferguson, Between Two Layers, the Immutable X podcast. You guys should go check it out. We talked about raising capital and valuations. And one of the best pieces of advice that I've gotten as I've navigated applying to startups and living life, I guess, is like, if you're thinking of joining a startup, thinking of joining something like Doodles, where a big part of your compensation or a big part of the appeal of the compensation is likely equity. You really need to think long and hard about what the valuation of the company is, what you think the valuation of that company could be, because the difference between those two is like, that's what you personally have to gain from your equity. So Doodles is already at a $700 million valuation. That's a huge ass valuation, which means like it has to be a unicorn. It has to be a multi-billion-dollar company for your equity to go up from whatever the initial offer is. And I think people don't really think strategically enough about this. And we saw this in the bear market. It was, I think, a huge problem where you had all sorts of young people join startups that had crazy valuations because it was the bull market. And I'm talking outside of Web3, right? I'm talking just broadly in the world. And their equity is now underwater because the valuation wasn't reasonable. And it wasn't, it had gotten so inflated relative to what historical norms were. So I think Doodles has big potential, but building a multi-billion-dollar company and then building a $10 billion company or a $20 billion company is really fucking hard.
Only so many of them exist in the world, and many
so many of them exist.
Many years, and there's so much risk. I completely agree with everything you said. Yeah.
So you just have to think about that. If you're join Doodles because you love the culture and you love the project and you're excited to work there every day, and your equity will hopefully be worth a bunch someday.
Immutable X is the layer 2 platform for crypto gaming. Immutable offers massive scalability with up to 9,000 transactions per second and instant transaction confirmation. No more gas fees, no more waiting around for your transaction to clear. Immutable's zero knowledge rollup finally unlocks the world of crypto gaming. Immutable X is the only gas-free NFT minting platform with over 26 million NFTs minted, all with zero gas fees. With the power of Immutable, gaming developers don't also need to become smart contract developers. developers, they just need to plug in to Immutable's API and instantly start unlocking the full potential of crypto assets inside of games. This is why world-class companies and projects have decided to deploy on Immutable X like GameStop, Ember Sword, Planet Quest, Illuvium, TikTok, and many more behind the scenes. So start building your game on Immutable X today at immutable.com.
MetaMask is the leading Web3 wallet to get you access to everything you need in Web3. If you're just getting started on your NFT journey, you need MetaMask. And if you need to fund your MetaMask account in order to buy that NFT that you've been eyeing, well, now you can do that directly through MetaMask. Just click the blue buy button on the home screen. Personally, I'm mad that I've spent extra gas fees transferring money from Coinbase to MetaMask in order to buy NFTs. I've been using MetaMask directly, and it is so much better. You can also buy stable coins and native tokens from Ethereum, Polygon, Avalanche, CeeLo, and others, and you can do it directly with your debit card, your credit card, through Apple Pay or Google Pay. And there is now an improved buying experience on MetaMask Mobile. You'll only see tokens that are in your region, so it's personalized to you, and you'll get real-time quotes, so you know you're always getting the best deal. If you haven't downloaded MetaMask yet, what are you waiting for? Go try it out. You can learn more about buying cryptocurrencies with MetaMask at metamask.io/buy-crypto. All right, for anybody watching on the YouTube, apologies. We are having technical difficulties, and it appears that I will no longer be able to have video, which is really disappointing because it's like the one day I put makeup on, because I have another recording and then I have a bunch of events later today. So I was like, all right, I'll look cute for this. And then lo and behold, that's the damn day that my video cuts out. So you can't even tell that I'm looking cute. Okay.
We blame the merge.
We blame the merge. Yeah, this is the real Y2K.
It went too well.
Everything. Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about another set of IP that I love dearly, that I do hold, which is Aku and Akutars. We're going to talk about Disney in just a minute. Disney had their D23 conference recently, which is their big annual corporate conference. They apparently wanted to kind of make it like an alternative to Comic-Con, and like wanted to do their own kind of conference the way they wanted to do it for their IP. So that was, I guess, where this whole concept originated for this D23 conference that they do. But Akutar and Micah Johnson, that project was the only non-Disney IP project to be represented at D23, which is like a really big deal if you think about what it could mean. Who the hell knows? Now I'll say it's because Micah was the first creator in the Visa Creators Program, and Visa was the presenting sponsor of the D23 conference. So that was the hookup there. But nevertheless, I mean, really cool, really exciting. And folks know I'm a really big believer in Aku and Akutars. I actually picked up 2 Akutars this past week. So disclosure, pumping my own bags, I suppose.
Yeah,
you know?
I have some as well. And it's because you were talking them up, I don't know, 6 months ago. I went and picked up a bunch, and I did more research. I was like, yeah, this is legit. This is incredible. This is a project I'm really happy to support and hold, and they're thinking long term.
And I would say a project that has avoided the challenges of like a Doodles or you know, everything we were just talking about, because they actually really haven't courted the NFT space that much.
Most people don't know about them.
They literally are there. Yes, it's hilarious to me. And that's, you know, and what's amazing about them is Micah's actually in Discord a lot. I don't know as much recently. I haven't been in their Discord as recently. But it's not like they don't engage with their community or their holders. They really do. Micah just hasn't done these big pushes to like pump within the NFT space. And so I think he really cannot be accused of, you know, what I think some of these other projects get this accusation around, because he's really targeted, I think, the broader world. And, you know, he's gotten more mainstream press than he has even crypto press in some ways. But this has just always been for me a case of an IP that resonates for me. I think it's awesome. I think it has that je ne sais quoi, you know, it has that magic where I could just see this as a movie. I could see this as a beloved character that kids everywhere like attach to, and therefore it has collector value. And that's why I've grabbed them. I also just think it has room. You know, part of my challenge is, even when you have these projects that are at 7 ETH, like a Doodles, and we didn't even mention that Doodles had actually fallen after this announcement, which is interesting and shows how holders are feeling about it. But like 7 ETH is a lot of money, and I believe the price of ETH is going to go up, you know? And so, you know, ETH hits 5K, 10K, like $35,000, $70,000. Like, you got to be driving a lot of value, or people have to, you know, really feel like this is going to be an impressive collectible, or it needs to be a really valuable collectible to really justify that price. Whereas Akutars are still sitting at half an ETH, 0.7 ETH. That to me has room still to grow on some great news, and it doesn't have to be Disney level IP to justify that kind of a price or to pump from here. So anyways, that's my case for Akutars.
Yeah, they're fantastic. And to your point there, it's something that I don't think people necessarily think about enough, and that is how much harder it is for a NFT that's 7 ETH to 10x to 70 ETH versus one that's 0.7 ETH to go to 7 ETH. And it just requires an order of magnitude more capital. And it just, we're not going to see that many. And like you said, even at 70, that's a crazy valuation in today's standards, let alone when ETH goes up. So yeah, I think I guess the quote unquote play, not financial advice, but generally is to look for those lower priced gems. And there are a lot out there, especially in this bear market, of teams that have been building heads down, engaging with their community. They didn't waste their treasury. They've got runway, they've got plans, they've got alternate revenue models perhaps, and they've got IP. And the floor price might have fallen from maybe 2.5 ETH to 0.2 ETH. Like a lot of projects are down 90-95%, but fundamentally nothing has changed. It's just the entire market, the macro world has all gone to hell. So I think there are tremendous buy potential absolutely out there. It's just about finding them, because it is a bit of a minefield. There are, on the flip side, a lot of those projects that did mismanage their treasury and are probably going to soft rug and pack up shop in 6 months. So you want to, it's not an easy thing to to navigate, but if you put in the time and research, I really think there are significant upside returns for those who can navigate those waters as well.
Totally. And this is perhaps the most obvious thing, or the thing that people always say, but it's like, find the shit that resonates for you, which I will say for me, there's not that much. Like I love Doodles, clearly, right? But like nothing resonates for me at $20,000, like I'm like, well, that's kind of above where I'm willing to spend on something. But there are a handful of things, like Akutars is one of them, where I'm like, I just want to own this. Like I just think this is cool, and I just, the story, and like I want to own it. And the other one for me that hasn't launched, but you can get access to the private beta if you listened to my last Overpriced JPEGs episode, is Cryptoys. Like these little cute characters, these little collectibles, they're these little toys, like I want to own them. And they're at a price point that I can afford to have that feeling about. So you can be selective. Like again, not a lot of stuff just doesn't hit me in that emotional place. And Akutars is one of them, and the Cryptoys is. And I'll let you know as more do. But so anyway, Disney. So we just mentioned they had their D23 corporate annual conference thing, and we had a lot of interesting stuff come out of that. The Akutar news was big, but Bob Chapek, who is their CEO, was really like let loose and did a lot of interviews and spoke more candidly than I think we've seen him speak historically about the company and what they're looking to do. And I have to say, it was exciting. Like Starbucks doesn't want to use the NFT phrase. He said they don't like to use the M word, which is metaverse. He's like, there's a lot of hair on that. So they stayed away from metaverse and opted for, I think it was experiential lifestyle platform. and making Disney an experiential lifestyle platform. Did you see the video, the AR Disney video? Okay, y'all.
Of the TV spilling out into the living room with waterfall and trees. It was magical.
Yep. We will link to this for everyone to see if you missed it. But I mean, it looks dope. It's this AR Disney whatever, where like you hold your phone up and like a tree sprouts in your living room and there's a waterfall. And now look, we're still a ways away from, nobody wants to like watch a movie holding their phone up to the screen. Like that's way too much work. But when the glasses get seamless enough, I mean, it just strikes me that future generations are going to see like static on your TV images as the way we look at like black and white movies. Like, not like I wouldn't watch a black and white movie if it was good enough, but the bar is so much higher because it just is a duller experience than what we have today and what I can watch today. And I mean, I'm looking at it now. It's so cool. It looks beautiful.
So cool. I did have like a little fear, how we had that whole phase of like 3D glasses and home TVs that are 3D and then it was like a fad, but I think this is so much more, and virtual reality and augmented reality has so much more potential. And when the glasses catch up, I really agree. It's going to be this monumental shift. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that there's skepticism to be had here. I mean, John Rogers, who everyone who listens to the show will know, and ex-Disney, et cetera, he's described the failure of 3D as a failure of movie studios in the sense that they wanted to command the higher ticket price that 3D movies commanded, but they didn't want to put in the work to film in 3D. So Avatars was such a big deal, the James Cameron movie Avatar, because he actually shot for 3D. And then what you had was this wave of movie studios not shooting for 3D and then like making them 3D, which was actually a much crappier experience. And it burned consumers. And John said that before in the context of being afraid that perhaps these studios are doing the same thing with NFTs, where they're doing these like really schlocky Happy Meal style NFT projects that are going to burn consumers on, entertainment NFTs. I've since had other people kind of push back and say that wasn't the only problem. Like even there were movies that were shot for 3D that still just like fundamentally weren't a better enough experience for people to like want to pay for that. So I think that's true. I do think it's a matter of like getting a pair of home AR glasses that are cheap enough, don't cause a headache. Like we are some number of years away from that. And maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 20 years, maybe it's 5 years. I don't know. But where like it just sits next to your remote and you select to like, there are certain experiences that are just better when you put on those AR glasses and watch it that way. I just, it's hard for me not to imagine that ultimately becoming fairly mainstream in some time horizon.
I agree.
They also talked about, so I'll read a quote. This is from a Deadline article that we can link to. Bob Chapek. We want to give people the ability to experience digitally something that's akin to the physical experience that they necessarily, it's a little confusing the way it's phrased. Basically, it sounds like they want to be able to allow people to experience digitally what they can experience at the Disney parks. And he said, he's like 99, however many people can't actually afford or can't actually get to a Disney park, but we want to be able to bring that experience to them. But it's even more important than that. When a family comes to our parks, we know exactly what you did. Let's say you stay a week. We got 7 days, 24 hours. We know everything that you do in the park. And if you give us the permission and the ability through the membership app, we'll then program your Disney Plus experience, not according to what you watched last or what other people who watch this show watch, but according to what you did and what you experienced at the park. So really blending their physical Disney park experience with their Disney Plus media entertainment experience in ways that to me are like NFTs are a no-brainer part of blending the digital and the physical. And I just think it's still a little bit squinting to see the future here, but I can't see any way they do this without NFTs being just a massive component of it, where you can buy the collectibles on your TV because you just watch something and that collectible is going to give you something that you're going to be able to unlock at the park when you're there. Like it just no brainer.
Yeah, it's that's super exciting to hear that frame of thought. And yeah, like that stuff can absolutely, and it will absolutely happen. And it's very exciting. A part of me is like a little weary of like the dystopian perspective from privacy perspectives and thinking about more and more companies tracking our data and us getting into echo chambers and these places where our life is now dictated by companies rather than like maybe we lose autonomy around our decision-making processes, and we need to work harder to retain that. And I don't know, I could go down a whole round here, but there's just, the more I think about the future of all of this, that there is something to be wary of. And I think that we should be mindful of that direction. But it's so exciting and there's so much power and potential to it.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah, privacy is another conversation to have. That's definitely the thing that you have to put aside to get excited about all of the rest of this, no doubt. I wanted to throw out a number here. The Disney pins business. Have you been to Disney World?
A lot, like 15 years ago. But yeah.
Did you collect the pins when you were there?
I doubt it.
When you go to Disney parks, they have you can get pins for different experiences or different characters, and then you wear these little sachets, and nobody can see me because again technical issues, difficulties on this, but I'm indicating you wear these sachets and you can put the pins on it. And I am not somebody who's ever been a collector particularly, and when I was younger and like went to Disney World, I was obsessed with collecting these pins. I mean, this was so fun, and I just thought this was like the greatest thing ever. The Disney pins business is $100 million. Disney makes $100 million on these pin collectibles just from the in-park experiences. I mean, if your head isn't spinning about the NFT potential there, insane. Like you are not paying enough attention. It's just such a no-brainer. I have family members who are huge Disney people who they used to live in Orlando. Actually, they now live in North Carolina and just like can't wait to get back to Orlando so they can go to Disney more. And like their whole house are just like Disney plates that they don't use. They just hang them on the wall,
That's
to like,
wild.
because they are just huge Disney people. I mean, this is a brand that the collectible value of Disney IP is massive and enormous. And the more they lean into the combining digital and the physical, coupled with their naturally collectible IP orientation, I mean, just print, baby, just like NFTs all day long. All right, nearing the end here. I think a couple shout outs maybe we want to give. Our girl Somi, InPeak, her company, super awesome. Somi's amazing. And their first mint just happened. So they just sold their first 300, I think it was 350, 300 some NFTs, sold out. Congratulations to Somi.
I think that they cut supply, so it didn't properly sold out, but they cut supply and then they sold at that. And then there was this effect where, because they had cut supply, the floor price went up because there was still demand for it. And it just, came in a little late. And so they're now working on a Gen 2. So it's effectively a membership card token to the InPeak platform and ecosystem, which comes with all sorts of utilities and benefit and access. And yeah, they were already planning out their Gen 2 and really bringing the community along for the ride. So I think it's a really good use case of when or a case study of a project where the mint date doesn't go exceptionally well as planned. I think they were trying to mint 1,000. But Somi pivoted day of, made some fast and hard decisions, cut supply, and now all the holders are happy because the floor price is up and there are people buying on secondary realizing, oh, there's actual value here. And they had a really successful town hall and a powering full steam ahead. So yeah, I have a lot of respect for Somi.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great strategy. I mean, she's a hustler, right? Like she's one of these people that like figures out how to make it work. And you're right.
Yeah.
So she said, we now have 300 unique holders and they're going to give away about 100 tokens to members through a scholarship program where folks will apply. So we'll include the link to Somi's tweet. You can go find InPeak. And if you're interested in joining the scholarship program, she's really trying to build an education platform and where they're for like networking, career development, and sort of like always on content about what's happening in this space. I know you've done some classes, with her and through InPeak.
I'm doing another one. Yeah.
That's awesome. You did one on art blocks. And yeah, I just have a tremendous amount of respect for Somi. And she's been somebody who really has entered a number of communities. I know the Proof being a big one. Like she entered the Proof Discord and has been really active there as a way to like, connect with people in this space. Just like she, like I said, she hustles and she, it seems like builds really strong communities. So a lot of respect. ApeCoin Unlock. There's a big ApeCoin Unlock happening here in the tomorrow or 2 days. We're recording this on Thursday, September 15th. So I think it's the 16th or 17th. The first ApeCoin will be unlocked since ApeCoin was released. So you've got 25 million tokens that are going to launch partner one. And we don't know who launch partner one is, but we can be pretty sure it's probably like Animoca or A16Z or I forget who the third big partner for them is, but one of those two.
I can't remember. Yeah.
So the price is around $5. It's been falling a little lately. I can't tell. I don't know how much people are tracking this. Are you seeing a lot like in the ape community of people talking about this? Like it's definitely on people's radars.
It's definitely on people's radars. There's a lot of talk about the upcoming staking pools, and I think you need like 10,000 ape coin per board ape, original ape, to max those staking pools out, and like 2,000 per mutant and 900 per dog. And people are doing math around how much you need to get the most out of those staking pools, and then I guess offsetting that by the amount of supply that's about to come on the market. I'm not convinced that it is going to come on the market. I think if it does go to A16Z Animoca, I think that these are established enough funds and companies that, I mean, they will be thinking long term and
totally
consider what's the short term impact if we dump 20,000 coins, 20 million coins rather, on the market. It's going to have a devastating effect. So, and they don't need the money, I imagine. So they'll probably hold, and I don't think it's going to have this massive cascading effect on the floor price. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical about the whole staking thing, because I don't know if you read, Kobe wrote this really fantastic Substack on what staking had become in NFT communities versus what it's meant to be. And it's meant to be a way like we've just literally transitioned to proof of stake to
secure the network.
Secure the network. And now all of NFTs projects like, well, if you just lock it up for a while, we'll give you more of the token. And it's not really doing anything other than being a meme for anyway. So I'm just hearing myself become more and more bearish on Yuga, which I'm not bearish on them. They're obviously just the S tier project and have tremendous amount going for them. But yeah, just a little bit of skepticism about some of this stuff.
It's funny, we've flipped, which I think shows that you're like the true degen and I'm like the corporate shill and hack, where like these companies get more like professionalized and more corporate, and I get more bullish.
Yeah, and I'm getting more bearish.
You get more bearish, which the truth is both are right and wrong. You know what I mean? Like I've been taking the kind of corporate shill perspective, but I could argue it both ways, truthfully. And I think I'm just excited because I think it's been the kind of degen, unprofessionalized nature of these projects that have led to a lot of skepticism by the mainstream. And I really am in a phase right now where I'm just like, I want 1 million more people. I want 5 million more people in this space. And I do think these companies getting kind of serious, and that does sometimes come at the expense of like listening to the mob on Twitter. That excites me. Again, there's lots of nuance there, but I've been tracking very loosely the staking proposals, and I guess there was the one that was accepted, and the staking mechanism. It's Horizon Labs is their partner on the staking.
Sounds about right.
I think Horizon Labs is Yuga's partner, and I think Yuga does a very good job of picking partners typically. So on their like staking mechanics and whatever, I haven't been tracking it too closely, I guess, because I kind of agree. Like I'm like, I don't really understand what the point is. I guess other than to just get more token, but whatever. Interest is a well understood concept. So if staking were a little bit more like it was to lend it out and you were creating like a lending pool, then I understand why you get rewarded for that. But when you are rewarded simply for not selling your coin, that's just like an unsustainable position to be in.
Yeah.
Because your price is artificially propped up. It's not based on how much people want it. So anyway, that is the show. Zeneca, thank you so much. Through all of the technical challenges, I think there was just too much to get through today to try and cut this short and do it with video. So we will see you next time.
Thank you. We made it work.
Made it work. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.